Today I will demonstrate how to make a trace monotype. The basic idea is that ink can be transferred from the ink slab to the paper using pressure applied by your hand or some type of drawing tool. Because of this, the process works best with thinner papers like mulberry, rice, kozo, or gampi. Thicker papers yield a fuzzier line quality, and papers with texture can pick up more scuff marks. Begin with a drawing done on thin paper. Mine is on newsprint drawn in pencil. I wouldn't go much thicker than printer paper for your drawing. This does not need to be a high-quality paper. You can cut the quality paper that you plan to print on to size in advance or leave it a little bigger so that you trim it down later. Either way, be sure your drawing is smaller than the paper you are about to print on. The side you want to print on should be face down with the drawing on the back. Your final print will be the reverse of your drawing. Using a low adhesive tape like painter's tape, secure your drawing to the back of the paper. Your drawing must stay in the same place throughout the entire process. If the tape you use is too sticky, it can tear the paper when you remove it later on. Today I will be using some saved Speedball oil-based relief ink, but sort of prefer intaglio inks for this because they don't lift quite as easily. However, both inks work quite well. If you happen to have more than one ink slab, it's nice to roll out your ink on a separate slab from what you plan to print off of. Start by rolling out a small square of ink. Keep it off to the side of your ink slab. You want about the same application as you would for inking a relief plate. Remember to lift your brayer between passes and let the roller spin so you cover all sides. This square is not what you will do your trace monotype on. You are just using it to charge your roller. If you did your monotype on that rolled out area, you would not be able to get crisp, fine lines. Your paper would also pick up a lot of extra ink. Take the ink on your roller and roll out a new area. You want the thinnest application you can get. It takes time, but do your best to roll out any brayer marks. Here is a close-up of the rolled out area I will use for my print. It's a little on the thicker side. You could go thinner, but I wouldn't use anything with a thicker application than this. This is where I charged my roller. You can see the difference. This would be way too thick. If you roll out just a little too much ink, you can blot it up with a scrap of paper. If you apply way too much ink, you can scrape half of it up, or all of it, and then just roll out what's left on your brayer. When you scrape up ink, it can leave thicker areas along the side. These will transfer onto your paper and leave blobs, so they have to go. Begin by scraping them up with the ink knife. If there are still some blobs, you can wipe those up with a paper towel. Then smooth out any brayer marks. When the rollout is ready to go, cover up the charging square with cling wrap. I recommend using some sort of lift to keep the pressure of your hand from transferring ink onto the paper. These can take different forms. This is one made of poplar wood with little legs glued on either side. These work well for smaller drawings. Here is a scrap of wood about an inch high with another piece of wood resting against it. This flexible version allows you to adjust the lift in different ways depending on your needs. If you don't have any wood scraps, you can use a ruler and a book, or really anything about an inch high. When you're ready to start, lay your drawing face up on top of your lightly rolled out ink. Set up your lift so that it is off of the rolled up area. I'm using a piece of poplar laid between some scrap wood and a drawing box. I like the flexibility of this because I can move it around as needed. Rest your drawing hand on the lift and carefully trace over the lines of your drawing. Use your non-dominant hand to keep the paper from skidding away from you. Do not place this hand where the ink is or it will transfer to the paper. It takes a little practice and is more difficult with larger drawings. If you look at this photo of the print in progress, you can see in the upper middle section where I accidentally placed my fingers over where the ink was. These unintentional marks are characteristic of trace monotype. You can make marks with almost any tool. Here are a few examples of tools I used in this print. pencils, paintbrush handles, a skewer, spoon, and a pen. You can also apply pressure with your hands and fingers. Here is an example of types of marks that can be made with the tools you just saw. Along the top row is a thicker, textured paper. Along the bottom, I made marks on a thinner, smoother paper. The column on the left was made with a thick application of ink. Those were made with the square where the roller was charged. The column on the right was made using the proper amount of ink from the rolled out area where the monotype was made. Here is an example of paper that is probably too thick to achieve thin, crisp lines. It also has a lot of texture that will lift off ink in unexpected ways. This is a thin, smooth drawing paper and would work just fine for this process. And this is Kitakata that I am doing the demonstration on. It is a paper made from Gampi. It is thin, flexible, and strong. As you are working, it's okay to move the drawing around, so long as it stays secured to the print you are making. As with pencil, you can make darker marks by pressing harder. You can make trace monotypes with different colors by rolling out whatever color you want to add and using the same technique as you did for the first layer. Remember that although they blend, the second color will sit on top of the first, so it's a good idea to work from the weakest color to the strongest, so that the boldest color sits on top. Keep the same guide drawing attached through all the layers so that you can keep track of what you are doing. Although trace monotype gets its name from being the sort of process that traditionally yields a single one-off print, it is possible to reuse your drawing as a matrix to make a variable addition. After a while, the ink slab will start to get a little used looking. You typically don't need to recharge your brayer and can just refresh the rollout area using whatever ink is still on the brayer. Cleanup for trace monotypes is comparatively fast because you don't have a matrix to clean. Just scrape up the ink and save it if you have enough. I typically keep any more than a marble's size. If it's less than that, you can wipe it off on scrap. Roll excess ink off of your brayer and ink knife. Pour baby oil over the brayer and cover it completely before wiping it off with a paper towel. Wipe off the ink knife and the slab as well. Then hit everything with a pearl-sized amount of dish soap and a tiny splash of water. Remember to get all 5 sides of the ink knife. Thoroughly dry your tools and the ink slab with a dry paper towel. When your print is finished, you can carefully remove the tape securing the drawing.